I was 12 years old the night the storm trapped us in that awful silence. My parents were supposed to be back from their weekend trip, but their flight got delayed because of the weather, leaving just me and my 16-year-old sister, Jess, alone in the house. We weren't scared at first, just annoyed. Jess had promised to order pizza and let me stay up late playing video games, but then the power flickered and died, taking the Wi-Fi with it. The rain hammered the roof so hard it sounded like nails being poured from the sky, and the wind made the old oak tree in the yard scrape against the windows like it was begging to be let in. We lit candles, and their shaky glow made the shadows in the living room stretch and twist, turning familiar furniture into crouching shapes. That's when a motion sensor light outside the garage clicked on .it first. We assumed it was just the storm. Maybe a branch had fallen or a raccoon was rummaging through the trash. But then it happened again and again. Each time, the sudden burst of light made my stomach drop, like someone was flicking a switch just to mess with us. Jess peered through the kitchen window, her breath fogging up the glass. "Probably just the wind," she muttered, but her voice was tight. Then on the fifth or sixth time, the light stayed on. That's when we saw it, a figure standing dead still in the middle of the driveway. Tall, way taller than my dad, with this unnatural straight posture, like a mannequin someone had propped up in the rain. No hood, no umbrella, just standing there facing the house. The worst part? The light wasn't triggering because it was moving. It was triggering because it was there. Jess grabbed my arm so hard it hurt, her nails digging into my skin like she was afraid I'd bolt. "Don't move," she whispered, even though we were both frozen. The figure didn't twitch, didn't shift, just stood there, soaking in the downpour like it didn't even feel the cold. My brain kept trying to make sense of it. Maybe it's a Halloween decoration? A prank? But our neighbors didn't do stuff like that. And besides, the thing was too solid. The motion light buzzed, flickered, then cut out, plunging the driveway back into darkness. For a second, I thought it was gone. Then the light snapped on again, and my breath caught. It was closer. Not by much, just a step or two, but enough to make my legs go weak. Jess yanked me away from the window, her face pale in the candlelight. "We need to call Dad," she said, but we both knew our phones were useless. The storm had killed the signal hours ago that we retreated to the living room, but the house didn't feel safe anymore. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the pipes made my heart jackhammer. Jess grabbed a kitchen knife, her hands shaking, and I clutched a baseball bat like it could actually protect me. The motion light kept triggering, each time staying on longer, like the thing outside was testing it. Then, the worst sound yet, a slow, deliberate thud against the side of the house. Not the wind, not the tree. Something hitting the wall, right below my parents' bedroom window. Jess's eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw real terror in her face. She was the tough one, the one who laughed at horror movies, but this wasn't a movie. This was something that shouldn't exist, and it was here with us in the dark. The thud came again, louder this time, like whatever was outside was pressing its weight against the house. I could have sworn I heard the wood groan under the pressure. Jess grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the hallway, her voice a hissed whisper. "Bathroom. Now." It was the only room without windows. We barricaded ourselves inside, the knife and bat clutched between us like sacred relics. The storm raged outside, but underneath the rain, I could hear it, footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling the house like it was sizing up its prey. My whole body was shaking so badly I could hear my own teeth chattering. Jess put a finger to her lips, her eyes wide and unblinking. Then, from somewhere near the back door, came the sound of the handle jiggling, not rattling from the wind, turning like someone was testing it. The power came back on with a sudden, blinding snap, the bathroom light flooding the room, so abruptly I yelped. For a second, I thought we were saved, but then the reality hit me. The lights meant the motion sensor was active again. And if that thing was still out there, Jess must have realized it too, because she lunged for the switch and killed the lights just as the garage light flared to life outside. Through the tiny crack in the bathroom door, I saw its glow spill into the hallway. And then, silence. No footsteps, no tus, just the relentless drum of rain. My lungs burned from holding my breath. Then a new sound, a single, wet knock on the front door. Not a bang, not a scratch, a knock polite, almost human, like it was waiting to be invited in. Jess and I stayed frozen in that bathroom for what felt like hours, listening to the knocking repeat every few minutes. Always the same rhythm, always too patient. The storm had muffled everything else, but that sound cut through the noise like a blade. My legs were cramping, and my throat was so dry it hurt, but I was too scared to even whisper. Then, the worst possible thing happened. The knocking moved. It wasn't at the front door anymore. It was coming from the bathroom door, right in front of us. 3 soft taps, like a child playing a game. Jess clamped a hand over my mouth before I could scream. The doorknob twitched, just once. That's when I noticed the temperature. The room was getting colder, our breath coming out in visible clouds despite the summer storm outside. Something in me snapped. I couldn't just sit there waiting for that thing to get in. I grabbed the baseball bat tighter and lunged for the door, ignoring Jess's frantic grab of my shirt. "Stop it!" I screamed, swinging the bat against the wood with a crack that echoed through the house. The knocking ceased instantly. Silence. Then, from the other side of the door, a sound I'll never forget. Laughter. Not human. Not even close. More like a recording of laughter played backward, all garbled and stretched. The bathroom light flickered madly, though neither of us had touched the switch. In a strobe-like flashes, I saw something under the door, a shadow, too thin to be a person, sliding like oil across the tile toward our feet. Jess yanked me back just as the power died again, plunging us into total darkness. The laughter stopped as suddenly as it started, replaced by a new sound, scratching. Long, slow drags against the bathroom door, like something was running its nails down the wood grain. Jess shoved me behind her, her back pressed against the sink, the knife trembling in her grip. The shadow under the door had vanished, but the cold lingered, clinging to my skin like wet plastic. Then a whisper, not from the door, from inside the room. It was so faint I thought I'd imagined it, just 2 words hissed in a voice that sounded like radio static. "Let me." I spun around, expecting to see something in the mirror, but the glass was fogged over except for 3 jagged lines like claw marks scraped through the condensation. That's when the garage light outside flared back on, casting a glow through the hallway crack. Jess grabbed my arm and mouthed run. We burst out of the bathroom, slamming the door shut behind us, and sprinted for the kitchen. The second we crossed the threshold, the motion light clicked off again, but not before I glimpsed the figure. It wasn't in the driveway anymore. It was on the porch, its face pressed against the window, distorted by the rain-streaked glass. No eyes, just hollow pits. No mouth, just a dark slit that stretched too wide when it saw us. Jess fumbled for the landline phone, the old one Dad insisted we keep for emergencies. But the moment she lifted the receiver, the line erupted with that same staticky laughter. She dropped it like it had burned her. The figure vanished from the window, but the air in the kitchen grew thick, like we were wading through invisible fog. Then the back door handle started rattling violently, not testing anymore, demanding. Jess grabbed my hand, her fingers icy, and dragged me toward the basement. "We'll barricade downstairs," she panted, but I knew it was hopeless. The scratching from the bathroom had started again, this time crawling up the walls, and the garage light was flickering like a strobe, illuminating the figure's silhouette as it drifted across the yard. Just as we reached the basement door, the power surged back on with a deafening hum, and every light in the house blazed to life. The TV in the living room turned on by itself, volume maxed out, white noise screaming through the house. And then, clear as a gunshot in the chaos, 3 final knocks. Not the door. Behind us that we whirled around, and for one horrific second, I saw it. Not shadow, not man, but something in between, its limbs too long, its head tilted at a broken angle. Then the lights died for good. Something rushed past us, so close I felt the wrongness of it, like static electricity and rotting leaves. The basement door slammed shut on its own, locking us out. And then silence. Real silence. No knocking, no laughter. Just rain on the roof and our ragged breathing. We stayed huddled together until dawn, too terrified to move. When the sun finally rose, the motion light was dead, the driveway empty. Our parents got home that afternoon to find us as shell-shocked on the couch, the house eerily normal. They didn't believe us, of course, but Jess and I knew. That thing wanted us to know it could get in, and it'll be back. My sister's house was too quiet. That was the first thing I noticed when I agreed to house sit for her during her 2-week work trip. She lived in this sprawling 1970s ranch-style home at the edge of town, surrounded by woods so thick you couldn't see the neighbors. Normally, I love the solitude, but that night, the silence felt heavy, like the air before a storm. And sure enough, around 11 p.m., the thunder started. Not the distant, rumbling kind, but sharp cracks that shook the windows. I was camped on the couch, half watching some forgettable action movie, when a bolt of lightning lit up the entire living room. For a split second, everything was blinding white, and that's when I saw it. Upstairs, in the hallway window, a shadow moved behind a sheer curtain. Not a tree branch, not a trick of the light. A person standing perfectly still. My stomach dropped. My sister was in Denver. The house was supposed to be empty. I grabbed my phone, fingers shaking so hard I misdialed 911 twice. The dispatcher's voice was calm, but I could barely get the words out. There's someone in my sister's house. I'm alone. They're upstairs. The cops arrived fast, their flashlights cutting through the rain as they swept the property. I waited outside, soaked and shivering, while they checked every closet, under every bed. Nothing. No broken locks, no muddy footprints, just me looking like a paranoid idiot. The lead officer even patted my shoulder like I was some jumpy kid who'd watched too many horror movies. But as they pulled away, one thought gnawed at me. I know what I saw. Back inside, I deadbolt every door and jammed a kitchen chair under the upstairs hallway doorknob, like that'd stop anyone already in the house. The storm had knocked out the Wi-Fi, so I couldn't even check the security cameras for my phone. My sister had insisted on installing them after a break-in scare last year, but I'd rolled my eyes at the time. This town's safer than a retirement home, I'd told her. Now, every creak of the old floorboards made my pulse spike. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a raccoon had gotten in through the attic vent? But raccoons don't stand at windows. They don't have shoulders. Around 3 a.m., I finally passed out on the couch, baseball bat in hand, the TV still muttering infomercials. Morning light made everything feel stupid. The chair was still wedged in place, undisturbed. Upstairs, the hallway was just a hallway. No eerie silhouette, no signs of forced entry. I even checked the damn attic, half expecting to find some homeless squatter's nest. Nothing, just dust and my sister's Christmas decorations. By noon, I convinced myself it was sleep deprivation or a lightning-induced hallucination. Then I remember the cameras. The system recorded 24/7 to a hard drive, even without Wi-Fi. My sister kept the monitor in her home office, a tiny room that always smelled like lavender and printer ink. I pulled up the footage from last night, fast-forwarding through hours of empty rooms. Then, at 8:47 p.m., right after I'd left for groceries, a figure stepped in a frame. The figure moved like they knew the house. Not frantic, not searching, just walking calmly through the kitchen, pausing to run a finger along the counter like they were checking for dust. The camera angle was too high to see their face, but something about their posture made my skin prickle. Too stiff, too deliberate. They wore a dark hoodie, sleeves pulled down over their hands, and those generic gray sweatpants you see at any Walmart. Normal clothes. Wrong context. My breath hitched when they turned toward the stairs. The timestamp jumped, 8:49 p.m. 2 minutes later, I watched myself come back inside, arms full of grocery bags, whistling. The figure was already upstairs. Had they frozen when they heard me? Were they still up there when I microwaved my dinner, when I laughed at the movie, when I slammed the laptop shut? My hands were sweating. The footage had no sound, but my brain filled in the creak of the fifth stair, the one that always groaned. The whisper of the hallway carpet underfoot. How long had they been hiding? Hours? Days? I thought of the open bathroom door I'd shrugged off last night. The faint smell of metal I'd blamed on old pipes. The cops had only checked rooms, not the space under the beds, not the big linen closet with its broken latch. I grabbed my phone and called them back, then stopped. What would I say? Yeah, hi. So your guys missed the stalker casually chilling in the house. The footage proved nothing sinister, just presence. But then I noticed it. On the counter where the figure had touched, next to the fruit bowl, a single key was gone. My sister spared. I tore the house apart looking for that key. Empty drawers, flipped couch cushions, even checked the freezer, like some deranged scavenger hunt. Nothing. The worst part? The normalcy of it all. Sunlight poured through the windows, birds chirped outside, and here I was sweating over a missing key like it was a severed finger. But keys don't vanish. People take them. I call my sister, trying to keep my voice steady. Hey, weird question. Did you move your spare key? She sighed like I'd asked her to explain gravity. It's always in the bowl. What? Elite. Just making sure. Hanging up, I stared at the hallway mirror and caught my own reflection, pale, wide-eyed. Then movement behind me. A flicker. I spun around. Empty. But the curtain by the back door swayed just slightly like someone had brushed past it. The police came back, this time with a K9 unit. The dog, a snarling German shepherd, Went straight upstairs, nails clicking on hardwood. It stopped at the linen closet, barking like crazy. The cop yanked the door open. Empty, but the dog wouldn't quit. It lunged at the shelves, knocking down towels until the cop pulled it back. That's when I saw it. A single wet footprint on the bottom shelf, too big to be mine. The cop frowned. Could have been there a while. Bullshit. I put fresh towels there yesterday. The dog kept sniffing the air, growling at nothing. Then like a switch flipped, it sat. Calm. The cops left, muttering about false alarms. I locked myself in the bathroom, gripping the sink, and finally let myself cry. That's when I heard it. 3 soft knocks on the door. Not the front door, the bathroom door. From inside the house, that M.Y. blood turned to ice. The knocking stopped, but the air in the bathroom thickened like the walls were breathing. I gripped the baseball bat tighter, my palms slick with sweat. Hello. I croaked, instantly regretting it. Silence. Then, a whisper of fabric against the doorframe. Not a voice, not footsteps, just the faintest shift of someone leaning closer. I lunged for the door, flinging it open with the bat raised, but the hallway was empty. Just the hum of the fridge downstairs and that damn swaying curtain. Then I noticed it. A single gray thread caught on the door hinge, like from those sweatpants in the footage. My stomach lurched. They were messing with me. Toying. I sprinted to the car, keys jangling, and peeled out of the driveway. Only when I was 3 blocks away did I realize I'd left the front door wide open. Let them take whatever they wanted. I crashed at a motel that reeked of bleach and regret. The TV played static. I couldn't call my sister. Not yet, so I pulled up the security app on my phone, accessing the cameras remotely. The living room feed showed nothing. The kitchen, empty. Then I switched to the hallway upstairs. The linen closet door was ajar, and on the floor, centered perfectly in the frame, lay the missing key. My throat closed up, but worse, the timestamp. It had been placed there 10 minutes ago while I was speeding away, which meant they'd stay behind, or they'd follow me out. I zoomed in. The key wasn't just dropped. It was arranged deliberately, teeth pointing toward the camera. A message. I zoomed closer. Something was written on the key in tiny letters, Sharpa black. Next time, check the basement. I drove back to the house at dawn, shaking so hard I could barely turn the key in the ignition. The basement had always given me the creeps. My sister used it for storage, just boxes of old textbooks and our childhood junk. But now, standing at the top of those narrow stairs, the darkness below felt alive. I flicked the light switch. Nothing. The bulb was out or removed. Phone flashlight in one hand, bat in the other, I took the steps one at a time, the wood groaning under my weight. The air smelled like wet concrete and something sharper like copper. The beam of my light caught it first. A nest of blankets in the corner, crushed soda cans, a pile of my sister's missing mail. Then I saw the photos. Dozens of them taped to the wall. Me, her, dates scribbled in red marker. Our routines. A half-empty water bottle rolled as I backed up, hitting something soft. I didn't want to look down. The cops found DNA, skin cells on the blankets, a partial print on a can, but no matches in the system. My sister sold the house a month later. She still thinks I overreacted. But here's what I can't forget. That last photo on the wall, taken the night of the storm. Me asleep on the couch. The bat slipped from my fingers. And in the corner of the shot, just barely in frame, their hand reaching toward me, sleeve pulled down over their wrist. I moved cities, changed my number. But sometimes when I'm half asleep, I'll hear 3 knocks. Not on the door, not on the wall, but inside my head. And I know, they're not done. Because the basement wasn't the end. It was an invitation. It was one of those storms that made you question why you'd even left the house. The kind where the rain didn't just fall, it punched the windshield in thick, relentless sheets. My wife, Jess, and I were driving back from her cousin's wedding in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, taking the scenic route because GPS had crapped out an hour earlier. The road was barely visible, just a slick black ribbon cutting through dense woods on either side. Our headlights barely made a dent in the darkness, and the radio had been reduced to static half an hour ago. Jess was gripping the wheel like it might fly away, and I was squinting through the downpour when we saw it. A car, half submerged in a ditch, its front end crumpled against a tree. No lights, no movement. Just this eerie, abandoned wreck glowing faintly in our high beams that we pulled over without even discussing it. Instinct, I guess. The second I stepped out, the cold hit me like a slap, rainwater instantly soaking through my shoes. Jess grabbed the flashlight from the glove box, and its beam cut shaky lines across the wreck. The driver's door was wide open, but no one was inside. No blood, no belongings, just a faint smell of wet upholstery and something metallic. "Hello," Jess called, her voice swallowed by the storm. Nothing. Then from somewhere in the trees, a voice, muffled but unmistakably human, called back, "Help, please." My stomach dropped. It came from deep in the woods, where the flashlight couldn't reach. Jess and I exchanged a look. No way someone could have survived that crash, and just wandered off. But we couldn't just leave. That we hesitated at the tree line, the flashlight beam trembling in my hand. The voice called again, "Help us," but this time it was different, sharper, almost familiar. Jess took a step forward, her breath visible in the cold. "We're coming," she shouted, but her voice wavered. The second she spoke, the woods answered. Not with words, but with her voice. "We're coming," echoed back in a distorted whisper, like it was being dragged through gravel. My skin prickled. Jess froze, her fingers digging into my arm. "Did you hear that?" she breathed. Before I could answer, another voice cut through the rain, my name. Not shouted, not even spoken, just released into the air like someone had been holding it in their mouth, that we backed up so fast I nearly slipped in the mud. The flashlight caught movement between the trees, just a flicker of something pale, too tall to be a person, before it vanished. Jess was already running for the car, and I followed, my heart slamming against my ribs. The voices kept calling, but now they weren't pretending to be hurt. They were chanting our names, over and over, in perfect unison. I fumbled with the door handle, practically falling into the passenger seat as Jess started the engine. That's when I saw them, muddy footprints on the back seat floor, still glistening wet. Too big to be Jess's, too small to be mine. And worst of all, they weren't facing the door. They were facing us, like someone had been sitting there, watching, waiting. The engine roared to life, and Jess didn't even check her mirrors before slamming the car into reverse. Tires spun in the mud for one terrifying second before catching, and then we were flying backward down the road. I kept my eyes locked on the trees, half expecting to see something step out onto the road behind us. The voices had stopped, or maybe we just couldn't hear them over the storm and the engine. My hand was shaking so bad I could barely grip the seat. Jess's knuckles were white on the wheel, her breathing ragged. "What the hell was that?" she hissed. I didn't have an answer. All I could think about were those footprints. Fresh, deliberate, like whatever made them had been right there with us the whole time, that we hit pavement again, and Jess whipped the car around, speeding toward the nearest town. The rain had eased up just enough to see, but now the headlights kept catching shapes at the edge of the road, jagged shadows that didn't move like trees. Every time I blinked, they seemed closer. Then the radio crackled to life. Not with static, with laughter, a wet, gurgling sound that made my stomach twist. Jess lunged to turn it off, but the dial wouldn't budge. The laughter got louder, breaking into words. "You left us," in a voice that wasn't human. Jess screamed and yanked the wheel, swerving hard. For a second, I thought we'd hit something. But when I looked back, the road was empty. The radio went silent. The only sound was our panicked breathing and the tap-tap-tap of rain on the roof, and we drove in silence for what felt like hours, both of us too scared to speak. Every few minutes, I'd glance into the back seat, half expecting to see someone or something sitting there. The muddy footprints had dried into dark stains, but I could still make out the shape of toes. Human, but not quite right. Too long, too many joints. Jess kept checking the rearview mirror, her eyes wide and unblinking. "It's playing with us," she whispered. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, but then the headlights flickered. Not like an electrical problem, like something had passed in front of them. The temperature in the car plummeted, our breath fogging the windows despite the heater being on full blast. That's when the knocking started. 3 slow, deliberate raps on the roof, tap, tap, tap directly above my head. I froze. Jess let out a choke sob and pressed the gas harder, the speedometer climbing past 80. The knocking moved, circling the car like whatever was outside was crawling along with us. Then it stopped. The silence was worse. My whole body was rigid, waiting for the next horror. That's when I felt it, cold fingers brushing the back of my neck. I whipped around so fast, I nearly threw out my back. The back seat was empty, but on the window behind Jess, written in fog breath, were 2 words. "Look up." I didn't want to look up. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to keep my eyes locked forward, to pretend I hadn't seen those words. But the air in the car had changed, thick, heavy, like something was pressing down on us. Jess must have felt it too, because her hand was shaking so badly the wheels shuddered under them. Then came the sound, a slow, wet drip, drip, drip hitting the center console between us. I forced my gaze upward. The ceiling was bulging downward, the fabric sagging as if something heavy was pressing against it from the other side. A dark stain spread outward, seeping through the upholstery. Not water, but something thicker with a coppery tang that made my throat close up. The bulge twitched, moved, like whatever was up, there was shifting, getting comfortable. Jess let out a whimper and slammed on the brakes. The second the car lurched to a stop, the dripping stopped. The ceiling went still. The only sound was our ragged breathing and the tap, tap, tap of rain on the roof. Except now, it wasn't just rain. It was fingers that we didn't speak. We didn't have to. Jess threw the car back into drive and floored it, the tires screeching against the wet asphalt. I kept my eyes glued to the ceiling, waiting for it to tear open, for something to come crashing down on us. But the road ahead was worse. The headlights cut through the rain, illuminating a figure standing in the middle of the road. Too tall, too thin, its limbs bent at wrong angles. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything. Jess swerved at the last second, and I caught a glimpse of its face as we passed. No features, just smooth, wet skin stretched tight over bone, and a mouth that split open too wide, too many teeth glinting in the dark. The radio burst to life again, screeching static before a voice. My voice gurgled. "You should have stopped when we asked." Jess screamed. I screamed. The car fishtailed, and for one terrifying second, I thought we'd spin out. But then the road straightened, and the figure was gone. The radio died. The ceiling was just a ceiling again. The only proof any of it had happened was the muddy footprints still staining the back seat, and the faint, sour smell of something old, something hungry, clinging to the air. We didn't stop driving until we hit the first gas station with lights on, miles later. Jess was crying silently, her whole body trembling. I was no better. My shirt was soaked with sweat, my fingers numb from gripping the seat. We sat there in that bright, fluorescent-lit parking lot for what felt like hours, too scared to move, too scared to look away from the car. The rain had stopped, but the night felt heavier, like it was pressing in around us, that I finally forced myself to check the back seat. The footprints were still there, but now they were different. The shape was wrong. Longer, the toes stretched too far, the arches too high. Like whatever made them had changed shape while we weren't looking. And then I saw it. A single dark hair caught in the seatbelt buckle. Coarse, black, not human, but we never went back to that road. We never even reported the crashed car. What would we say? That something in the woods stole our voices, followed us home, left proof it had been inside our car? Nobody would believe us. Hell, we barely believe it, and we were there. But sometimes when it rains too hard and the power flickers, I'll catch a whiff of that same metallic rot in the air. And if I'm stupid enough to look out the window, I'll see them, shapes too tall, too thin, standing just beyond the tree line. Watching, waiting, just won't talk about it anymore. She threw out the shoes she wore that night, scrubbed the back seat until her hands were raw. But some stains don't come out, and some things don't let go.